If I'm a SBI customer, I'll be encouraged to put money in the mutual fund, not keep in the banks at all. So how do you manage this balancing between mutual fund and banks?
22,500 branches. Every day, hundreds of customers in each branch walk and trust with their money to us.
SBI is not necessarily known for customer service. Am I correct in saying that, or am I totally wrong?
Absolutely wrong. Bottom line is that you take care of your depositors and your business will be taken care of.
Very warm welcome. A fireside chat with the chairman of, SBI is always called chairman. Even when a lady was in charge, she was never called chairperson because your SBI Act says only chairman. So Arundhati madam was also called chairman. So chairman of India's largest bank, State Bank of India, give him a big hand. He patiently had been waiting. What is SBI? I'm not bothering you with too much of information, but just your loan book size is rupees 39 lakh crore. Total business size asset is 65 trillion. It roughly about 1/5 of the banking industry, 20% of the banking industry. It's world 47th largest bank in terms of assets. They're the only Indian bank among the top 50 in the world. And of course, market cap, it continuously changed, but as we speak, is about 17th largest market cap. So Setish Sahab, I'm little inconvenienced because I think your result is day after. I cannot ask you anything business, balance sheet related. So I have to, I can't. So, but tell us, sir, 1988 probationary officer, getting into the corner room, it's just about 2 months now. So what makes you, what you have in you and what others did not have? What made you this leadership I'm talking about?
First of all, Tamalda, thank you very much for having me here, and congratulations to Business Standard Group on completing the 50 years of existence and keeping us informed for so many years insightfully. In terms of course, 36 years in SBI, we always say that every probationary officer batch, in the first day of their training, the trainer will come and say that one of you will become chairman of the bank. So, I think while we don't consciously pursue to become number one in the organization, because there's no set pattern or set rule to become number one in this organization, I'm honored and humbled the responsibility which is given to me. But well, what it takes to reach any leadership position, and SBI is not an exception, is a constant learning and sincerity and hard work. These are the qualities which have ensured that State Bank gives an opportunity to everyone. And I realize that it is also an institution which gives you a level playing field, that anybody and who can work hard and show their mettle will become number one. I think that is what I want to say. I don't think there is any plan for anybody to become number one in this organization. Fairly large organization.
When did you think that you would become the chairman? At what stage of your career?
I don't think I can pinpoint that at this point. It dawned on me that I probably would become chairman of SBI. But one thing I can definitely say that banking was never the first priority. We just ended up here, and most of the times, of course, it determines in which position you are there and how many years of service is left. These are all matters in the public sector which determine the possibility of mantling this.
Thank you. I mean, I hope you would not mind me asking these personal questions because I'm tempted. You are relatively fresh, just 2 months in your new job. So tell us what we are discussing in the previous panel. I think you joined a little later, probably. That industry, there are certain issues at this point of time, high CD ratio, NIM under pressure, that's the net interest margin. There are stress in certain quarters, particularly in the unsecured loan and all. So sitting in your part from State Bank of India, which is 20% of the banking industry, how genuine are these concerns?
So,
on multiple fronts, what you're saying?
I think challenges are not new to Indian banking industry. We have been going through difficult times from, one cycle to another. Banking by inherently is a cyclical in nature. At some point we have had asset quality issues, and I remember when sometime during early 1990s, giving a commercial loan, we used to ask for 400% collateral. So from there, the way the credit is liberalized, it's a fact that that some of the challenges what you mentioned in terms of the deposit growth, definitely is all of us are pursuing the deposits in a very sincere manner. In fact, in one of the study what Banker magazine has done, I was sharing on the sidelines, that one generation of bankers have forgotten asking for the deposits because the liquidity was so much in the system that the deposits were just coming in. I think the earlier panel also you were asking the same question. The deposits and the credit growth, they find some equilibrium somewhere. I think it is bound to happen. Whether deposits get accelerated to meet the credit needs or credit gets decelerated to meet the deposit needs, will a constant adjustment which will happen. But the good thing, as you rightly mentioned, is that today all of us are focusing on the deposit mobilization, which in a way, we should not be talking about that the customer started gaining the attention from a point of view of that the value-added services which are linked to his account have gone up. Otherwise, a savings account which is open is basically a transactional account. And as long as the transactions were there, and I think nobody really bothered about it. But today, every one of us is thinking in terms of providing value-added services to our customers in a much better manner. It's not that customer service was faulty or people were not bothered about the customers, but they're gaining much more attention that what else we can do for the depositors in terms of, and I keep saying that deposit mobilization, two elements of deposit mobilization. One is that you can't mobilize deposit only by increasing the rates of interest. There is only so much we can do on the rates part, because as you increase the rates of interest on the deposits, your ability to lend, qualitative lending also will be impacted. You need to balance that. Number two, the deposit mobilization is also a franchisee activity. Particularly for a large bank like State Bank of India, you would be surprised that during COVID time, when several banks have stopped taking the deposits, we had, we said that we don't refuse any deposits which are walking into our bank. 22,500 branches, every day hundreds of customers in each branch walk and trust with their money to us. And we have never turned down any customer on the deposit front. And this is helping us in terms of providing the adequate liquidity for our credit growth, which is a great learning, is that your fundamental activity of taking care of your depositors and mobilizing the deposits is a critical component. I think everybody has realized it. And deposit crunch is there. Definitely, that is because I think the asset allocation is changing. The asset allocation, as I said, is inevitable in a maturing economy. If people are earning more and investment opportunities are there, I think we should not be really worried about that the funds are going into mutual funds or insurance, pension. In fact, we all have wanted this kind of thing to happen, right? So now it is for the banks to enhance their customer value, where some allocation which is done to the deposits are staying with us. If I'm having a primary customer, I don't know, I really simplified or complicated the answer. The simple bottom line is that you take care of your depositors and your business will be taken care of.
But SETTY sir, you are offering 2.75 to savings bank account holder. Still, how do you keep them on hold?
No, see, this is precisely what I said.
2.75%, the lowest among all the banks.
Yeah. So, in terms of savings bank deposits is all about transaction demand. And they're all globally, the transaction accounts, many countries don't even pay any interest. What we have ensured is that if anybody opening a savings bank account, what is the value addition I do? Today, 63,000 ATMs operate in the country. 1.2 crore transactions happen. And none of these are charged. They're all free services which are provided. And digital services which are available, UPI or YONO-based transactions, everything is free. Which means that any customer opening a savings account is primarily using it for the transaction purpose, and how much value you are giving to those transactional activities which he does, and how much simplification you're doing, how much frictionless banking services you provide is going to determine in terms of attracting the customers to our portfolio. Just to give the number, which is not price sensitive, I'm giving this number. We open 50 to 60,000 savings bank account a day, even today. 50 to 60,000 accounts, and our average annual savings account is about 1.2 crore savings accounts are opened with us, which means that people still trust in terms of engaging with SBI for the value which they get
despite paying so low.
Yeah, this is again, I'm saying that the interest rate probably is not very significant.
So we are heading towards a structure where it's like the developed markets, savings bank will be almost treated like a current account.
And also, Tamal, one thing what you must realize today, there are a lot of opportunities for them to invest in the fixed deposits in a seamless manner. If somebody has got an excess money in the savings account, it just gets swept into a fixed deposit, which means that they're still earning significantly by managing their cash flows.
Mr. SETTY, tell us, you are not a unique entity, but there are many others also, a bank running mutual fund. Many of the Indian, I'm not naming, State Bank is one of them. And till recently, what happened is if I'm a SBI customer, I'll be encouraged to put money in the mutual fund, not keep in the banks at all. So how do you manage this balancing between mutual fund and banks?
Mutual fund and banks are
when it comes to money, I'm just saying.
No, they're completely.
Earlier, banks were using their branches to draw money into their own mutual funds, most of them.
Even now they are continuing to do. I don't think just because the deposits are not there. Obviously, some focus on the deposits is there. But I'll just give a data point. In SBI, the mutual fund penetration is 1.14% of our customer base.
And you are the largest, you run the largest
which means that, it is not competing, it is a complementing to each other in terms of the deposits and mutual funds. So the penetration, if you see, is hardly anything. And even if you go into the, I'm talking about 1.14% without considering my large Jantan accounts, which we having. These are the non-financial inclusion account of 33 crores. The penetration rate is just about 1.14. It's not that we stopped mobilizing deposit and was selling only mutual fund. The idea is that they're all complementary products, and how do you balance that? And today, many of these mutual funds which we sell, we keep saying that any mutual fund activity which SBI does, the product is approved at the highest level of an MD. So that our customer gets the right value if it is done. So in any case, I think they were not competing products and they were complementing each other.
Yes, talking about mutual fund, I don't think there's any restriction, nothing to do with results. But you have so many unlisted subsidiaries. Mutual fund is one of them. Then SBI Caps, SBI General Insurance. So what's the plan? Is there any way of getting them listed?
So I think our subsidiaries journey has been one of the most. I'm glad, Tamal, that you asked this question. I think many people may not really be aware that the non-banking subsidiaries of State Bank of India have contributed both to the value creation for the parent and investors, and more importantly, I think, to the ecosystem. Today, most of the non-banking subsidiaries of State Bank are market leaders. We have developed the market, we have strengthened the market, we brought the governance in each of the activities which we have taken. And on the value creation part, I think our investment, we keep saying that, we went on record also, our investment was 6,000 crores. Today, the gross value of this subsidiary is about 3 lakh crores.
6,000 crore
6,000 crore
investment brought
investment,
3 lakhs crore.
3 lakh crores. Which means that the country's financial services growth is, coexisted with the contribution what non-banking subsidiaries of SBI have done. I think that is very significant to realize. And the value, which is lying there, the divestment, we don't call it divestment. I think many a time people ask, when are you going to divest? Our idea is that if the subsidiary or a joint venture requires capital, we will definitely look at selling some stake, number one. Number two, the listing, if it adds value to the company and the investor base goes up, there's a right time for such activity. Nothing is on the horizon at this juncture. And we want most of these subsidiaries to have the heft when they come to the market. And we feel that, there's a value creation happening.
So nothing in imminent future.
Nothing on the horizon at this juncture.
And you have not spoken about the stress which Reserve Bank of India has been repeatedly talking about in unsecured loan. You have also very large RAM, right? Retail, agriculture and MSME. So what do you see the stress in the unsecured retail
I don't
front?
talk about SBI in particular. I think it's not appropriate for me to talk at this juncture. But it's a fact that I think when we looked at the numbers, most of the banks have announced, there seems to be some stress on the unsecured loan portfolio, but not to the level where it is alarming. Obviously, some slowdown which is happening on the unsecured loan growth is essentially a combination of the risk weights going up, and also maybe the reason for unsecured loan growth coming down is also because much of these unsecured loans happen through NBFC and MFI sectors also. So it's a cycle. The NBFC risk weights also have gone up. Obviously, there is some slowdown on the deceleration on that growth also.
Particularly what's happening in the NBFC sector now, are you now putting some cap on your exposure to NBFCs? Or is life is as usual giving money to NBFCs?
So again, I'm not willing to answer this question at this juncture. Okay. Not appropriate.
SETTY sir, you will not like me to ask you this, but SBI is not necessarily known for customer service. Am I correct in saying that, or am I totally wrong?
Absolutely wrong.
Wrong. So tell us what are you doing for the customers? What are you doing for the customers?
Yeah,
because
so
everybody is talking about customer service.
No, I think, as I said,
because even Reserve Bank of India now, it's
is a fairly, very, very highly diversified customer base State Bank of India serves. When we talk about 50 crore customers, I think there is not a single family which is not touched by SBI, either directly or indirectly. I think that is something which we need to know.
One in every 3 Indian, technically.
1 in 3 Indians, but I think every family in some way is touched by State Bank of India, and we take pride in that. And there's a constant endeavor to ensure that the customer is the center of our activity. Otherwise, I can't believe that somebody, 1.2 crore people who are planning to open their account prefer to open with SBI. That is just not possible if your customer service is not good, and where you have so many options to choose from. One thing which we are proud in SBI is that we constantly reimagined and reinvented ourselves. Is more than 220-year-old bank. Is about 220-year-old bank. And today, we are adjudged one of the most digitally savvy bank. Just give you the magnitude of the customer base and the magnitude of the transactions which we handle and the customer service which we provide. I'll just give an example. We handle 18 crore transactions a day on the UPI. 18 crore transactions. I'll tell you, some of the foreign banks handle 18 crore transactions in a year, but we handle in one day. And in sometimes on the surge part, 18 crores becomes 22 crores in 1 hour. Our technical decline of UPI is 0.2%. 0.2%. So which means that you are constantly inventing, constantly endeavoring to ensure that your customer is not inconvenienced. And all your touch points, we have, as I said, 22,500 branches, 63,000 ATMs, we have 80,000 business correspondents across the country. All these touch points have to constantly serve the customers. And then there is an issue. I'm not saying that there are no complaints, grievances. The number of complaints and grievances look larger because of the large customer base. We keep saying that the better indicator is that per lakh customer, what is your complaint number? We have the lowest number of complaints per lakh customer in the banking industry, which is a good indicator, not in the absolute terms when you have 50 crore customers.
Happy to hear that. So, Mr. Najib, talking about digital, that you are talking about the technology and all. So, you are known for At some point of time, you have some plan also even taking overseas, hyping of as an entity, listing, all sorts of things. I don't want to ask you that question. I'm a little handicapped also because of your result, imminent. But tell us, when it comes to technology, you are talking about the payment system and all, but how about democratization of the technology, like the farmers, the MSMEs, which State Bank of India's balance sheet has a huge exposure to that segment, out of RAM, both agriculture, farmers and MSMEs and all. So are you using technology in the right way for their benefit? Is there anything interesting you are doing?
So one interesting thing definitely I will mention on the agriculture and MSME part. Both these sectors are looking up, and I several times I mentioned that today with the data available, a lot of banks are confident of lending to these sectors. But how do you make accessibility to credit to these sectors is an important element. And MSME, for instance, we have introduced what is called business rule engine, which is completely data based. And with the CGTMSE guarantee, we are able to give a sanction up to 5 crore rupees within a day. Within a day. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that it is an experimentation basis. After we introduced the business rule engine based lending, in the last 6 months, we have done about 28,000 crores worth of loans on the BRE basis, which is a fairly large number of lending which happens on the business rule engine, which is completely data based. The only information which the customer has to give when he walks into the bank branches is PAN number and authority to access the GSTN on his basis. And a OTP which comes to him, he has to give to the bank to get the GSTN data. So the ecosystem of digitalization which has happened, as you mentioned, how do you democratize is that using the data, how do we make credit accessible to these people who actually are in need of credit? On the agriculture fund today, on the Yono Krishi, every year the farmer has to review his crop loan. He has to come to the branch. He loses one productive day when he comes to the branch. We made him to access the review on Yono app, which in 4 clicks he can complete the review process. More than the ease of doing business, he actually gets to save one productive day of coming to the branch, coming from his village. I think the democratization is happening, and the large-scale self-help group financing which is happening digitally today is going to be transformative in terms of the financial inclusion.
Great to hear that, City sir. But the other side is obvious thing, no surprise, the digital risk. How do you manage that? In some of the countries, what's happening, I believe Singapore is already implemented or in the process of implementing that. If I lose my money, whether I'm not involved, on the spot 50-50, it's between the bank and me. That's how it happens. So how do you manage the digital risk, and what is there? If I'm a victim of fraud, how do you manage that? Does the bank take the onus and pay me on immediately, or what happens?
No, in terms of the digital, as the digital penetration has gone up across the globe, it is not unique to India. I think it is across the country, across the globe. In fact, this is a bigger problem in the developed economies. In fact, since you mentioned Singapore, I was talking to the Singapore regulators.
Mass.
Mass, and also the DBS, Gupta, who was their CEO. They were mentioning that the digital frauds in the developed economies is significant because the average balances in the account is larger than in the developing economies. Yes. That means, it makes sense for them to target those customers which is more productive for them. So the digital frauds are a reality as the digital penetration is going up. So all the stakeholders, including the banks, regulators, law enforcement agencies, government, there is a huge effort to ensure that these frauds are prevented. These reasons are two. One is, of course, customer protection by itself. Number two is a larger thing what we must realize that India has progressed so well in the digitalization. And it is important for all of us to ensure that the confidence in the system is not lost because people are losing money. I think it is important, very, very great responsibility for all of us to work that how do we protect the customer. And the sharing part apart, I think we need to really go into, how do we work out that system and how do we ensure that the rights of the customer and the rights of the banks are protected. I'm not going into that sharing part yet because many countries are still grappling with how do they implement that system. But the immediate and urgent priority is that to put the proactive risk management in place. And much of these digital frauds can be prevented by a massive digital awareness which has to be created. I think we should not underplay these awareness programs. They are very, very important. I think we are spending a lot of money and energy in terms of engaging with the customers that what they can do, what they should not do on the digital front. Even the regulators are doing, government is doing. And on the ability of the system to prevent that depends on the government, telecom companies, banks, and customers themselves. I think we need to work on improving the ecosystem than actually talking about the sharing part, which will come later. The second part is that today, any unauthorized transaction which has happened in the customer account, many of us have improved the system so well. Today, I'll tell you, the unauthorized transaction in SBI is resolved within 2 days. Within 2 days. While the regulator permits us, to take a call on 5 days, we are trying to tell if any customer complaint is there, if unauthorized transaction is flagged, that in 2 to 3 days you have to solve and tell them that, what had happened. So essentially what we have to focus in the customer protection and customer awareness creation and bring the proactive risk management within the bank.
Great to hear that. Since the time is running out fast, I'm not asking you about your earnings, but asking you, rephrasing the same thing what we discussed in the previous panel. So, State Bank of India FY 24 profit was the higher of the collective net profit between 1955 and 2023. What State Bank of India did, it was last year's profit was higher than the entire thing and all. So I'm not asking about your profits and other parts, but will the good time continue? And the State Bank of India stock also doing phenomenally well. But I have no business on, and I'm not asking you on behalf of the investors and all. But I'm generally as an observer, I'm asking you. All this, CD ratio high, cost of deposits going up, some stress in certain segments. Despite all these things, will the good run continue for State Bank of India and better days, even better days ahead? Or you think that no, the cycle is slowly changing?
So I just would like to borrow what Governor was mentioning from this interaction with you, is that the macros of the country is strong. Yeah. And the financial services are completely intertwined with the macros. As long as the macros do well, the financial service system do well, number one. Number two, I think Governor also has mentioned that many of the banks, I think most of the banking system has improved its operational standards. It's a very, very important statement coming from the regulator, and we strongly believe that we have today very strong underwriting standards, which are also aided by the ecosystem which is available. Maybe earlier, if I have to give a loan to an MSME, I needed to know about his family, what is his spending habits. But today that information is available in the digital format, and there is so much formalization which has happened. So the macros being strong, continues to be strong, and if having a 7.2 GDP growth rate, and it's a growing economy, growing population, I'm a strong believer that the best is yet to come. It is not that best is behind us. I think we need to look for to better times. And the good thing is that we are all ready to support that good times. And our balance sheets are stronger, and our underwritings are stronger, and the data which is available is stronger. So I think there's nothing to really think about the good times are behind us, and the challenges which you are mentioned are part of it. We need to face those challenges, find solutions, and move on.
So even better times ahead. So
Absolutely.
we're coming to the end of it. Just one last thing to complete the cycle. Just 2 months now. How is life at the top?
So I think one thing I realized that I've been number 2 for the last 4 years. Number 1 is different. Let me tell you. So having said that, I think it comes incredible satisfaction to you that today it's not about decision making at the top. I think much of the decision making is structured decision making in many of the public sector banks. It is not that an individual takes a decision, but the satisfaction of having a large organization, ability of large organization to change the lives, an opportunity which is given to be a number 1, I think is incredibly challenging and also satisfying. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The pride in you. I mean, that's what the public sector bankers. You don't get much money. You will get it after the retirement. No? Okay. So give him a big hand if you enjoyed. Thank you. Thank you, sir.